I never believed in those trendy DNA tests. Just another scam to squeeze money out of people nostalgic for their roots. But that night, I ended up ordering one anyway. Not for myself, it was supposed to be a joke. My sister and I were arguing over who looked more like Dad, and I said, "Let's settle this once and for all." She laughed, but there was a flicker in her eyes, like she was expecting something more than just confirmation. The kit arrived a week later. A plastic vial, a set of instructions, and a tiny barcode sticker. We followed the directions, sent off the samples, and forgot about it. Almost. The email with the results came late one evening while I was walking home from work. I opened it on the go, and nearly walked into a store window. Match, 49.8%. Under, probable relationship, it said, full sibling. Bullshit, I muttered, scrolling down to double-check the details. The name, unfamiliar. Country, Sweden. Age, 33. And most importantly, no connection whatsoever to my sister's name. I read it again. And again. Had to be a mistake. At home, I showed the email to Sarah. She smiled at first, but when she saw the numbers, the color drained from her face. She looked down and whispered. "We need to talk. But not here." That evening, we met at the far end of the park, the part where no one really goes. Sarah was trembling, even though it was warm out. She started from far back, circling around the point, but every word pulled me closer to some icy, dark realization. "This isn't a coincidence," she finally said. "Mom knew." My mouth went dry. "Knew what?" She looked at me like she was deciding whether to tell me or keep the secret for a few more years. And then she said it. "We have another sister. And Dad. Dad isn't who we thought he was." I wanted to laugh, argue, shout, but instead I asked. "Where is she?" Sarah looked away. "If Mom's telling the truth, she's very far away. And you won't want to know why." At that moment, I had no idea what "far away" really meant, or that this story was about to drag out something we'd have been better off never knowing. The next morning, I got an email, not from the DNA company, but from a stranger. And it had just one sentence: "I know who you really are." I tossed and turned all night, replaying Sarah's face in the park. It wasn't fear. It was something worse. Like she knew not only about the other sister, but that this story couldn't possibly have a happy ending. The email from the stranger had gone to my personal inbox, the one I'd never listed anywhere online. I checked the sender, some strange, nameless address. No signature, no attachments, just one sentence. "I know who you really are." I must have read it a dozen times. Either it was some sick joke, or someone was really digging into our family. I didn't reply. Just closed the laptop and went to the kitchen for coffee, but my hands were shaking so bad I spilled half of it on the counter. At work, I kept catching myself checking my email every 5 minutes. Around lunchtime, the second message arrived. This time, a photograph. Black and white, old, with light leaks at the edges. Mom, young, 20 at most, and standing next to a man I'd never seen before. Under the photo, the text read. "Ask her about the summer of '89. My heart started pounding in my temples. In '89, I was only 3. But Mom had always told us she and Dad spent that summer in California, in Santa Barbara. So who the hell was this man? That evening, I called Sarah. She picked up on the first ring. "You got an email too?" I asked. Silence. "No. What did it say?" I told her about the photo. The line went quiet again. And then she said. "Listen to me carefully. Don't respond. Don't write this person back. We need to talk to Mom first." "Oh, sure," I snapped. "We'll just ask, 'Hey Mom, by the way, did you happen to hide another daughter in Sweden?'" No, Sarah said softly. That's not how we ask. And, it's better if we do it together. Tomorrow. I agreed, though deep down I already knew, after tomorrow's conversation, there would be no going back. But that evening, when I got home, there was an envelope in my mailbox. No return address. Inside, another photograph. This time, it was me, around 10 years old. And scrawled by hand across the bottom, "She knows I'm coming." I stared at the photograph so long my eyes began to water. The paper was thick, with yellowed edges, real, not something printed off the internet. I ran my finger over the writing. The ink was slightly smudged, as if someone had scrawled it in a hurry. Who was she? Mom. The sister in Sweden. And most importantly, what did "I'm coming" mean? All night, I kept listening for sounds beyond my door. Every rustle felt like footsteps, every passing car like someone watching me. In the morning, I got to the meeting spot with Sarah earlier than planned. She walked up with a coffee in hand, but the look on her face told me she hadn't slept any better than I had. "Show me," she said without a greeting. I handed her the envelope. Sarah studied the photo in silence, then looked up. "That's your house in the background." I looked closer and felt a chill creep down my spine. She was right, the old porch Dad and I painted when I was a kid. Which meant the picture was taken here, in our town. But when? "We're going to Mom's right now," Sarah said in a tone that left no room for argument. Mom's house greeted us with the smell of fresh baking and a strange stillness. She was sitting in the kitchen, stacking some papers into a neat pile. When she saw us, she tried to smile. "I know why you're here," she said, cutting off any questions. "But you're not ready to hear it." "We're ready," Sarah shot back. "Someone's been contacting us. Sending photographs. They know something about us." Mom closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "This started before you think. Before you were even born." She reached into the bottom drawer of the cabinet, pulled out a flat box tied with twine, and set it on the table. I reached to untie it, but Mom stopped me with her hand. "If you open this, there's no going back." I met Sarah's eyes. We both nodded. And as soon as the lid lifted, an envelope slid out, addressed in the same handwriting as on my photograph. Only this time, the words read, "You left me. But I've come back." Mom's hands trembled as she pulled several yellowed letters and a single document from the envelope. She took a deep breath, as if bracing herself. "In that year," she began quietly, "I thought everything was going to collapse. It was 1991, but it started in '89. Your father, Michael, and I went to Sweden. I wanted to take a course, and he said he wanted to show me the world. And then." Her voice faltered. I had never seen her like this, lips pressed tight, eyes glistening, her fingers turning white from tension. "We met a family in a small town by the sea. They were kind, simple people. Their little girl came running to me, shouting, 'Mom.' I thought she was mistaken. I laughed. But Michael just looked at us and stayed silent. The air in the room tightened like a wire. He told me later, 'That's my daughter.' The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. Sarah covered her face with her hands. Mom reached into the box and pulled out a birth certificate, a Swedish document with an unfamiliar name, Hannah Larsson. And in the father line, Michael Harris. I didn't know what to do, Mom whispered. He told me it was under control, that we'd sort it out. But I couldn't accept this girl. I was pregnant with you, she looked from me to Sarah. He brought her here, hid her in the old cabin by the lake, said it was just for a while. And then, he disappeared. My pulse hammered. But what about the letters? I picked one up, it was from a woman named Karen. You promised you'd come back. But it's been 2 years. Your daughter asks for you every night. If you don't come, I'll have to do what I swore I wouldn't. You left her here, so now I'll make the decision. I tried to reach Karen, Mom said, but every letter came back. And then this one arrived. She handed me the last envelope. On the front, in the same handwriting as the photo I'd received, were the words, "You left me. But I've come back," signed H. Inside was a small photograph of a young woman in her 20s. She stared straight into the camera, her blue eyes hauntingly familiar, identical to ours. My heart was pounding so loud I could hear it. Everything we thought we knew about our family was a lie. And then my phone buzzed again. A third message from the unknown number: "She'll be there in 3 days. Be ready." The rest of the day, Sarah and I barely spoke. Mom seemed drained, like she'd handed us her secret and was now waiting for us to decide what to do with it. 3 days. Not just a threat, it was a countdown. That evening, I checked my email, nothing. But the feeling of being watched wouldn't leave me, even at home. I closed the curtains, turned off the living room light, and peeked out the window. Under the street lamp across the road sat a dark car. Headlights off, but I could make out a figure behind the wheel. I blinked, and it pulled away, slowly, almost deliberately, as if giving me time to notice. "What is it?" Sarah appeared in the doorway. "Nothing," I lied, though my heart was pounding so hard my hands were shaking. The next day, I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting. My phone sat next to me, and every notification made me flinch. By noon, a new message arrived. Not text, a video. Just a few seconds long. The camera was shaky, filming from a distance, our house. Our windows. And a quiet female voice off camera, "I'm close." I nearly dropped my phone. That evening, we went back to Mom's. She sat on the couch, clutching the photograph, the one of the young woman with piercing blue eyes staring straight into the lens. "Is that her?" I asked. Mom nodded. She was a child. 5 years old. I remember her laugh. But then. Michael said her mother wouldn't let her come with him. And that we had to forget. Forget, yeah, right, Sarah muttered darkly. I was about to ask why Mom had kept all of this from us for so long when a sound outside cut me off, the snap of a twig underfoot. We went to the window. On the frosted glass was the imprint of a hand. Clear. Fresh. And at that exact moment, my phone buzzed with a message, "Day 1. See you soon." Sarah and I exchanged a look. Mom sat motionless, as if she hadn't even heard that someone had been outside. I opened the door and stepped onto the porch. Silence. No footsteps, no rustle. Just the dark street and the dim glow of a few street lamps. In the snow, footprints. Small, almost childlike. And they led not away from the house, but toward it. "Don't," Sarah's voice came from behind me. "If she's nearby, better not provoke her." But I still took a few steps forward. The tracks ended at the gate, as if the person had simply vanished. Back inside, I noticed Mom had put the photographs back in the box and tied the twine around it again. "That's enough for today," she said quietly. "Tomorrow, things will become clear." I wanted to ask what exactly would become clear, but just then my phone buzzed with a new email. This time, in English, no sender address. "It's not her you should be afraid of." A chill ran down my spine. Not her. Then who? Sarah read the message over my shoulder and went pale. "Looks like we've got more than one visitor." We got home late, and I locked every bolt. The night passed in silence, but my sleep was jagged, restless. In the morning, I went out to get the paper and found a small bundle on the doorstep, wrapped in damp paper. Inside was an old toy, a plush teddy bear with one eye torn out. On the tag sewn to its paw, written in shaky letters, were the words, "Second day." And as I stood there holding the toy, I saw someone in the distance, just beyond the corner of the street, filming me. I ran to the gate, but the figure around the corner was gone. No footprints, no sound, like they'd vanished into thin air. Sarah met me in the hallway, and when she saw the teddy bear, she froze. "Where did you get that?" "On the doorstep." "You realize what this means?" she asked. I just shrugged, but inside everything tightened. We were trapped, and someone clearly wanted us to know it. We decided not to tell Mom about the new find. She already looked exhausted. Instead, I dug out an old security camera that had been collecting dust in the garage. I set one up on the porch, another in the hallway aimed at the front door. The whole day was strangely quiet. No calls, no letters, no sounds under the windows. But I could feel it, this calm wasn't by chance. By evening, when it was already getting dark outside, the porch camera sent a motion alert. I opened the app on my phone, and froze. A woman stood there. Her back to the camera, wearing a long coat, her blonde hair loose. In her hands, a box. She set it on the steps, slowly turned her head toward the camera, and smiled. Then she lifted her hand and drew a finger across her throat. The gesture was cold, almost emotionless. After that, she turned and walked away, melting into the darkness. Sarah and I didn't touch the box until morning. But that night, lying in bed, I heard a faint, beeping. Steady. Slow. And with each beep, breathing became harder. At dawn, I realized, the sound was coming from inside the box. With the first rays of sunlight, Sarah and I stood on the porch, staring at the box. The beeping was still there, steady, like the ticking of a clock, but cold enough to make my skin crawl. "Maybe we should call the police," Sarah suggested. "And tell them what?" "That someone's been sending us toys and riddles." I shook my head. I put on gloves and carefully lifted the lid. Inside, wrapped in black plastic, was an old portable cassette player. A tape was already inside, and the rhythmic sound wasn't beeping at all, but the faint click of the tape winding. I pressed stop, then play. At first, silence. Then, a voice. Female, calm, with a slight accent. "If you're listening to this, it means I'm already close. Don't look for me. I'll find you myself." Then a short pause. And a laugh. A child's laugh. Sarah gripped my shoulder so hard her knuckles turned white. "It's her." We fast-forwarded. The next line sounded like it had been cut from an old conversation. "You promised you'd come back. Daddy." A chill raced down my spine. The voice was small, trusting, and familiar. Suddenly the tape cut off, replaced by static. But I realized it wasn't static at all, it was live. Someone was breathing into the microphone. I shut the player off instantly. Sarah and I locked eyes. "She's here," she whispered. At that moment, my phone buzzed. A new message, day 3. "Today we meet." And at the far end of the street, bathed in the early morning sun, stood the same figure in the coat, watching us. I ran to the gate, but the figure didn't move. Just stood there, as if waiting. The sun was at her back, keeping her face in shadow. "Don't go near her," Sarah shouted, but I was already moving forward. Each step pounded in my ears. When I was about 20 feet away, the figure finally raised her head. I saw her eyes, just like mine and Sarah's. Blue. Cold. "Hannah?" I asked, barely believing I'd said the name out loud. She didn't answer. She only tilted her head slightly and slowly pulled off her right glove. A thin, long scar ran across her wrist, as if from a rope. "You came," I breathed. She smiled. "You left me." "That wasn't me," I began, but at that moment, Mom's scream cut through the air from behind the house, sharp, piercing. I turned and ran back, but when I glanced over my shoulder, Hannah was gone. Vanished into thin air. Inside, Mom was on the floor. Beside her was the same box we'd opened yesterday, but now inside was a knife. Long kitchen style. Its blade slick with some dark liquid. Mom looked up at me. It wasn't her, she whispered. I wanted to ask who, then, but footsteps echoed in the hallway. Slow. Heavy. And when I looked up, there was a man standing in the doorway. His face half in shadow, but I knew him, all too well. The man stepped forward, and the light from the window caught his face. My blood ran cold. Michael. I breathed. Dad. He smiled, cold, almost mocking. So you do remember me. You're dead, Sarah said, but there was no conviction in her voice. That's what your mother told you, he nodded. Because the truth was more dangerous. Dangerous to who? I asked. Michael looked at us, then slowly turned toward the doorway. To her. The next second, Hannah appeared in the frame. The same blue eyes as ours, but with no warmth. In her hands, the old one-eyed teddy bear. I'm here, she said quietly. Not for hugs. What do you want? I asked. All of you. In one place. So you'll understand. She dropped the bear on the floor, and from its torn side, a small tape recorder rolled out. The voice on the tape was that of a child, trembling, Daddy, come back, it's scary here. That was the night, Hannah said, looking straight at Michael. The night you left and never came back. The night they locked me away so I'd disappear from your life. Mom stepped forward. I was protecting my children. Wasn't I your child? Hannah cut her off. 3 days I moved closer, just to see if you still feared me. And now I know, you do. She pulled out a long kitchen knife. Tonight we finish this. Either it ends, or it begins again. Her gaze moved from one of us to the other. The room was so silent, I could hear the floorboards creak under her step. So, family, she said, are you ready to pay for what you did? Could you look into the eyes of someone you once betrayed? And what would you do if they held both a knife, and your past, in the same hand?